to this episode of Al's Garage. We're continuing work on our 1943 Willys MB project. This is the seventh and final in our series of videos related to metalworking, body hammering, welding, and all that fun stuff. The first video we did was on the front bumper. We tried to straighten that out and get that put back on and make sure that everything was structurally okay with that. Our second video, we did some odds and ends. We had a frame repair where the front fender met the frame and some welding of holes we had to close, so some odds and ends and things like that on that video. Our third video, we did the rear passenger side fender and toolbox compartment. So we replaced some of that. We had to metal work that flat, so that was a process. The next video, our fourth video, was the repair of the side where the shovel and axe go. We had to cut some stuff out, weld some stuff in, shape some metal. A lot of fun, a lot of work. Our next video, the fifth one, was our rear panel. We got that one straight, or as straight as we wanted to get it for this job. And video number 6 was working on our front fenders, getting those straight, getting a fender brace welded in, a new fender brace to replace an old rusty one. So a lot of fun times have been had so far, but we are ready to tackle our last job, which is our grill and our hood, which, all things considered, are in great shape. What I'm going to do is tackle this grill. There's a few little hammering techniques and things that I need to do on this to get it straight. As far as the hood, there's some welding on the hood hinge and just a few dents and things we need to polish up. We're going to throw a little bit of skim coat filler on a few areas here, but the goal is just to really go through, make sure it looks good, and get it ready for paint. So let's get started. So we're pretty close to being done with this hood. However, there's a few welding areas that need attention. Now, this is a crack in the hood that's developed. There's a hood latch that is on this Jeep that we're going to continue to roll with, but the stress of that going, I assume, over dirt roads and things has caused this crack to appear. So we're going to try to weld that. I've been thinking about how I wanted to do this. Essentially, there is two pieces of metal, this and this, and all I do is turn 90 and go down, and that's what this is. So my thought is that if I weld this from the bottom at the recommended specs for 18 gauge sheet metal, which is what this is, that will get it most of the way. From there, on the other side, I'm going to take a my copper spoon, my homemade copper spoon I made, and then put that into the seam. I don't want the weld getting in the seam, and by putting the copper spoon in there, that will keep that seam looking as nice as it can, and then I'll just tack or touch weld on the top, depending on, you know, if it doesn't go all the way through. Maybe a better way to do this might be to grind away a little bit of this, because you're welding at your best when you have a little bit of a gap, not too much of a gap, but just a little bit of a gap, maybe a 1/16 of an inch or something like that. So other than that, we're going to try, like I said, I'm going to remove some of this paint. I'm going to get some welding done on this, and we'll see what it looks like on the other side. So all my extra weld is ground off the bottom side here, and that seems pretty smooth. Good enough for a skim coat of filler to finish it out. And then on the top side, same thing, pretty smooth. We ground down all the extra weld, and the area where the crack is seems to be welded to each other. Now, I'm kind of at a crossroads. So when you're doing a repair like this, as I'm doing with this, I'm thinking about, why did this happen in the first place? Well, the hood sits on the grill right here, and it flexed when this went down dirt roads, say washboardy roads, you know, bump, and it pulled this apart. So I'm thinking, okay, I put body filler on this thing, I get this welded up, I get it back to the guy, and the first time he takes it down a dirt road, it's going to crack again. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. And I don't want that to happen. So I want to do a better repair than this. I think that, I wasn't able to fully get the crack, plus the metal inherently is now weakened because it did have that crack. So what I think I'm going to do, and I hope it's not going to get in the way of the fit of everything, is I'm going to take a piece of metal that's maybe goes down to about here. It'll go up, over, and down, and I'll cut two pieces, and I'll either take a bead and weld a bead, or I'll do some tack welds, and that should hopefully make it more of a rigid surface, because as it sits now, I can almost move the thing on my own. So I think that will be the direction that I want to go with this, so that it can end up with a result that is a little more permanent and that can actually be used. And if you have a Willys MB or Ford GBW with a hood like this, let me know if you've had this experience or this trouble. The challenge is where this seam stops and is essentially cut off. It is right where this cut happens. So that seems to be, in my opinion, a weak point. But anyway, I'm going to cut some pieces here, and let's see if we can make this a little bit stronger. So we've got our patch panels made. I threw a little paint in the areas that will be touching each other. Hopefully that'll curb any rust that might get in there. I have this out of 16 gauge, which is a little bit thicker than what our hood is made out of. So hopefully me doing a little bit of welding on this should curb any future issues with this little hood crack that we have here. So let's get welding. At this point we have the crack in the hood pretty much repaired. It's nice and smooth. On the top side I should be able to throw a little coat of skim filler on this and have it be pretty much undetectable. And then I think the filler, I shouldn't have to worry about that cracking because of flexing, and worry about the metal cracking because of the plates underneath. Even though they're not entirely clean, I don't know what to do about my welding. Every time I weld it looks just terrible. I guess someday I'll get it good, but you know, as long as it is melting the one piece of metal to the other piece of metal, I guess that's really what's important. You know, I'm using my shielding gas and it's not, you know, splattering or anything like that. So I don't know, I just need more practice and, you know, learn to walk the cup and all that fun stuff. But for now, the welding that I'm doing is going to have to do. So that's where we're at. But the next thing that we're going to work on is the hood hinge. Let's take a look at that. So this is interesting. The hood was only being held on the vehicle by this and this unit. Apparently there's a brake here, a brake here, and a brake here. And so this just kind of hangs out here. But I'm going to go through and what I'll do is have this sit like this with a piece of angle iron behind it, just to kind of hold it all in place. Maybe I'll put a couple little clamps in, and then I'll do some welding on this side, flip it, do some welding on this side, and then I'll obviously grind it smooth, flat disc sand it smooth, make sure we're good there. And what's interesting about this hood is there's a Ford F-script right here. Now anyone who is a World War II Jeep expert or even a novice knows that the Ford Jeeps, which made about 30 to 40% production roughly, they ended up having an F stamp on all of their parts, whether it be bolts or the hood or anything you can think of, because Ford was contracted by the US government to make these vehicles, which was essentially Willys' design. So Ford Motor Company had some thoughts about that, and they said, you know, if we're going to make somebody else's vehicle, we're going to stamp it with our part, essentially our little F-script. So pretty interesting. Earlier I was looking for the hood numbers to see what the original hood numbers were for this. I mean, this tells me that this wasn't even the original hood. So uncovering mysteries all the time about this vehicle. Let's get started. Ah, damn it. Well, that's it as far as the welding on this little component, which amazingly makes such a big difference to the rigidity of the hood. Between that and my hinge and the crank up there, we're set to go. I mean, what a long journey it's been going through all the metal work on this. I'm glad to be done. From here, we're going to start putting on some body filler in some key areas. Not a lot, but there are a few areas I think we can address. And then it's painting time. So I am pretty excited and I can't wait to get to the next step. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.